Michael Cohen
All right.
has just returned from his 17th meeting with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in connection with their criminal investigation of Donald Trump. We will see what Michael Cohen can tell us here on the Political Beatdown, and here for the very first time anywhere following the 17th meeting. Also, Michael Cohen was subpoenaed by Donald Trump's lawyers. You heard that right. It's baffling. Donald Trump's lawyers subpoenaed Michael Cohen in connection with New York Attorney General Letitia James' civil fraud lawsuit against Donald Trump, where she is seeking at least $250 million against Donald Trump, his adult children, the Trump Organization, in connection with fraudulent and phony financial valuations. That case is set for trial in October of 2023, and they subpoenaed Cohen. Trump subpoenaed Cohen. It's not like Cohen's going to have any good news for them, so we got to ask Cohen about that. And the New Dominion Court filing their summary judgment motion in its $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox has been partially unsealed, and it has revealed the efforts by top Fox executives all the way up to Rupert Murdoch and the top Fox host to spread election disinformation, to boost ratings to their base, who they called effing lunatics. Also, Biden's historic visit to Ukraine was just so inspiring. And of course, MAGA Republicans flipped out in response to that, calling for secession. I mean, don't they realize that they take an oath of office? No, they absolutely don't realize that. And let's compare the image of Biden speaking in Warsaw this evening or yesterday evening with the Trump Club 45, which they then rebranded as Trump Club. I'll just call him Trump Club 47 at like a Hilton ballroom. I mean, if for someone who likes to project strength, those two images could not be more striking. And also,
well, it's not just, hey, Ben, it's not just that he's trying to project strength. How about wealth? I mean, that looks like it was something that was done by a junior high school, you know, for their backyard performance. They and a bunch of friends decided they're going to be a rock group, and they put that in their backyard. I mean, that's what it looks like. Pathetic.
And then 41,000 hours of surveillance footage from inside the Capitol building from Capitol Police was turned over by the MAGA Republican Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, exclusively to Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson's producers, not to the public, only to Tucker Carlson. And this was over the objections of the Capitol Police and the Department of Justice, who said this would imperil our national security. Michael Cohen, the co-host, Political Beatdown, one of the top 50 podcasts in America. We're only in week 3. Cohen, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. And that's, of course, thanks to our brigaders. We are sitting at the top 25 position in all news podcasts. And that's because here on the Political Beatdown with Bagel Ben and myself, let me tell you what you're going to get. You're getting raw, you're getting unfiltered, uncensored, and you're just getting no innuendo, no bullshit, straight up facts, information in terms of all of the news, you know, that's coming out at us each and every day. That's what you get. And thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for being part of the brigade. And as I always say, make sure that you share with your friends, because the only way that we will ultimately win this fight that we have, and that is to ensure that not 20,000, not 50,000, not 100,000 people end up viewing this, or 150,000 like the last one view this specific segment, but in the millions. And that's really what you need. We need the volume, because it's only with the volume will we be able to get our voices heard to the extent that we do. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and I can't wait to share some more info with you. First, you guys will get the info before anyone else. I literally got home not more than 8 minutes ago, you know, went ahead, grabbed myself a bottle of water, because they don't even give you water at the DA's office. Forget about, you know, a donut. Forget about, you know, some sort of a cookie. Nothing. You don't even get, not even water. So I came, I grabbed my bottle of water, set this computer up, and here we are, ready, willing, and able to get to work.
All right, Cohen. So tell us about that here exclusively. And first, for the brigade, this was your 17th meeting. You reported last week on your 16th meeting. And you said in your 16th meeting, you thought that the plane was in a position for takeoff. You expressed your level of confidence in the team. You said that as impressed as you were with Pomerantz and Dunn, the previous team under Cy Vance, this new Alvin Bragg team, you said, was equally as impressive, that they were getting very granular with their questions, delving deep into documents. They had a vast understanding of vast troves of records, which gave you a lot of confidence. And then you announced on the last show that you would be returning for the 17th meeting with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office this week. And now, a day after President's Day, Tuesday, February 21, 2023, as we are recording this, as you mentioned, you literally just left the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You joined the brigade right here on Political Beatdown. And can you tell us what took place, to the extent you can, during today's meeting with the DA?
Yeah. So it was supposed to actually be on Thursday. The 17th meeting was supposed to take place on Thursday, but they asked for it to be pushed up to today. Obviously, I complied. We spent a little over 2 hours going through some very granular information in detail. And like I said last week, that the plane is on the runway ready to take off. The plane has taken off. I do believe that this is it. There is no more granular information that I could provide them in the various topics that were discussed. And I do believe that my next appearance, or within the next, I would say 30 days max, I believe that they intend to call me to appear before a grand jury. I think that's where this case is at. And, you know, one of the things that I have said, and I've been very critical, not just on this program, not just on television, but in my own podcast, Mea Culpa. I've been very critical of Alvin Bragg. And over the course of the last, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks, I have tried to pull back that criticism. And I think I was, like so many people, I think we were unjust in terms of how we wanted him to handle this case. I am not the district attorney. You are not the district attorney. These other individuals are not the district attorney. Alvin Bragg is. And he had to feel comfortable, not just with the information that would need to be presented, but also the individuals with whom would be presenting the information and who would ultimately be witnesses at the main trial. And that's obviously something that he needed more time on. And while many of us, if not all of us, wanted to see that timeline expedited, we don't get to make that call. One of the things I will say is that he has really picked a very, very solid, a very strong team. And they are right now very well versed. Their information, their documentation, their presentation is as good as any that I have ever seen. And it is my belief that they will be bringing me in to testify before a grand jury. And this, by the way, is really troubling for, and should be troubling for, the Trump base, for the Trump team. The fact that Alvin Bragg is moving this case swiftly now. And I do believe that there will be consequences. And I certainly believe that there should be consequences to not just Donald himself, but to obviously many of the acolytes that have surrounded themselves around him. So my brigaders, as Donald would say, right, stand by, stay tuned. There's a lot that's going to be happening.
Stand back and stand by. A lot is happening at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Michael Cohen breaking big news here. First, on the political beatdown to the brigade, he believes that he will be called before the grand jury in the next 30 days. This following his 17th interview with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He's expressed a great degree of confidence in the team. And, what it seems that Bragg was doing here was really just building his team that he DA. He's the new sheriff in town, the new DA in town. And look, I think Pomerantz and Dunn have incredible reputations as lawyers, and they did a great job. But it does seem that Bragg wanted his own team, people who he trusted. And look, if you want my perspective of it, if Bragg felt, an issue potentially about, trust, Pomerantz turned around and wrote a book, right away. And look, I like the fact that there's transparency being brought to it, but to some extent, Bragg was had a reason to fear. It's not a normal process that a prosecutor in the know like that would write a book while there's an ongoing investigation. And Bragg may just be like, look, I want my own team. I want my all-star crew. And as I've always said too, the moment Bragg makes that call to indict, and it looks like the plane's taken off in the right direction and is landing in the land of accountability and justice, I think, him being the first DA to indict, him being the first DA to secure a conviction of the Trump organization, granted, it had much to be desired, would be an understatement there. I think that's positive news, Cohen. I think that's good news.
It is good news, and it's good news for accountability, for justice, and for democracy. But I don't want anybody to think for a split second that simply because I have tremendous confidence and tremendous faith in the team that is now currently handling this case, that this is in any way, shape, or form a denigration of the work that was done by Mark Pomerantz and by Carrie Dunn, because the answer is it should not. They are both spectacular lawyers. They were not alone. There was the same very large team that they were leading, and every single person on that team at the DA's office, none of whom are really on this team, at least not front and center. But every single one of these DAs that were involved with Pomerantz and with Carrie Dunn were spectacular. And I have to say, again, that the team that is now leading the charge are equally spectacular, but in no way should it diminish the accomplishments and the evaluation of this case by Pomerantz and Dunn. Absolutely not. They are both two spectacular attorneys that certainly laid out a very defined roadmap for this new team.
Cohen, you gave the metaphor on the last political beatdown of the plane taking off.
Yeah.
Was the plane going to land in justice? And our brigaders can infer what that means, where the plane is landing. Using that metaphor, where are we right now?
Well, if we're going to stay with the plane metaphor, then I would say that the plane has just taken off. And, it's now ready to make its, we'll call it trajectory turn in order to head to, we'll call it Justiceville, because that's really where I think it's at. And again, I just think we have to, at some point in time, we just have to acknowledge Alvin Bragg has taken a tremendous beating in the press, and by many of us, myself included. And with that, I would like to say that as it stands right now, I am very pleased with the way that he's handling the office, and I'm extremely satisfied with the way that his team has been not just treating me, but treating the information and setting up the information for what I do truly believe will be a trial against Donald Trump and others.
We're going to lose the metaphor soon, and we're just actually going to be talking about
it.
So,
wouldn't that just be great? Well, the son of a bitch has been indicted.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just a day that so many people are just waiting for. I love some of the comments. I can't wait. I've already bought my popcorn, and my beer for that shit show. It's going to be something spectacular to watch. And the reason it's going to be spectacular to watch is because we have all been witnesses to a man who has not been held accountable, and accountability just doesn't seem to fall in his general direction. Well, that's not happening anymore. We're already seeing now accountability for the Trump Organization by the DA. We saw accountability by Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization, who's now currently at Rikers Island. We're seeing our unsinkable New York Attorney General Tish James in the accountability of holding Donald Trump and the Trump Organization accountable for things that they have done, illegal things that she will be bringing this trial in October. As you stated earlier, we're now seeing accountability at the doorsteps in the Fulton County, Georgia case. We're beginning to see accountability. Again, it's at the very primordial stage of the DC with the January 6th insurrection and so on. So accountability is at Donald Trump's doorstep. Some are a little bit farther behind the walkway. Others are right there. And I believe in the DA's case, I believe they've already rung the doorbell.
We are approaching Justice Land. We are driving to Indictment Hotel. We are open. We can keep going on, but I want to talk about.
Hey, Salty, can we get a little? Salty, can we get a little ding dong there? A little doorbell ding dong.
Right? We'll make sure for the next political beatdown we've got sound effects loaded up.
Yeah. So truth be told, they are at his doorstep.
Let's talk about, you mentioned New York Attorney General Letitia James, the civil fraud lawsuit that was filed back in September of 2022, which is set to go to trial in October of 2023. The civil lawsuit seeks at least $250 million in damages based on Donald Trump and his adult children and the Trump organizations and several other civil defendants' fraudulent and phony valuation schemes where they would make up valuations for their property to get benefits, improper benefits and tax breaks and insurance benefits and loans and things that they weren't supposed to get based on phonying up these valuations. The lawsuit also has an injunctive element, which would basically stop the Trump Organization from doing business in the state of New York. So a true death knell to the Trump Organization if it succeeds. And this case is definitely going to trial. Judge Arthur Engoron has criticized Trump lawyers, and that's putting it lightly, for their delay tactics. This trial is not being moved, and it is a relatively quick trial date, as trial dates go for those who know the New York court system. But an interesting development involving you, Michael Cohen. That's why I love this show, because I don't have to speculate and say, here's what the headlines say. We're making the headlines here because the headlines involve the co-host, Michael Cohen. So it was funny, before the show, Salty, who's our producer, said, where's the headline? I go, we're the headline. It's Cohen. This is the news right here that other people will report on what Cohen says here. That's what makes the brigade so special. But Cohen, you were subpoenaed by Donald Trump's lawyers, including Alina Habba, in connection, and another bunch of other lawyers, in connection with this fraud lawsuit. You have the subpoena document. So for those watching, you can actually, are you allowed to hold it up? Am I?
Absolutely. So about a couple of days ago, I get a phone call. I had some folks over visiting, and I get a phone call from downstairs stating that there's somebody here to see me. I have no idea who it is, and I have no interest in going downstairs to meet somebody who, of course, I have no clue who they are. And so I said, well, who is this and what's that? Well, he's a private investigator. I go, oh, private investigator. Very good. What can I do for you? So he then proceeds to tell me that he has something that he needs to give to me. So I said, sir, are you a process server or are you a private investigator? There's obviously a difference. You can call yourself whatever you want, but are you a process server? And so he says, yes, I'm here to deliver papers to you. I said, well, that's great. Why don't you leave them downstairs for me and I'll get them later. Leave it with a doorman or somebody. And he said to me, well, I can't do that. I said, well, then take them with you and enjoy your night, because I'm not coming down right now. I'm busy. And so he ended up leaving him anyway. And this is what he left me, about a 230-page series of pages. And the truth is, the bulk of the document happens to be the New York Attorney General complaint, which you could go online and you can see it. That's attached as the appendix. That's Exhibit 1. And one of the interesting things is when I first looked at it, because I just took a quick glimpse, obviously the caption reads Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of New York, and it's captioned People of the State of New York by Letitia James, Attorney General of the State of New York, as plaintiff, versus Donald J. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and as you can see, a whole slew of individuals that are named at the bottom. I was like, boy, that's really kind of unusual that the Attorney General's office, after crediting me for starting the case, would subpoena me. Why not just contact me? I haven't really needed subpoenas in the past, other than the very first time when I was subpoenaed by the Senate Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. After finally sitting down a couple hours later and taking a look at the document, what I realized is that the document was not sent to me by Tish James's office, but rather by the multitude of law firms, and I think it's either 5 or 6 law firms that are representing Donald Trump or Donald Trump affiliated entities. Now, some of the comments that I see popping up every now and then from individuals, including the haters that for some unknown reason have decided to join our political beatdown brigade group. And again, I don't understand it, but at least
they can't get enough Cohen. They can't get enough of you.
That's true, but the beauty is that maybe they'll learn something if they would just put aside their animus. When he says things like, he was found guilty of all charges. Why could we, or how could we possibly believe him? Well, the same way that the whole world basically believed me when I testified live before the House Oversight Committee, because everything that I have always said, the only one who's ever questioned my veracity happens to be the Southern District of New York. And if you read Revenge, my book, you'll understand exactly why they did that, because so many of the prosecutors that were involved in my case, including the judge, were all in on the whole thing. And as you know, not even from my book, from Jeffrey Berman's book, where he came out and he stated in his own book that he was being pressured by Maine Justice to do certain things on cases that the SDNY was handling, including the case against Michael Cohen. So why the SDNY did that? Well, because they don't really care about anybody. They believe themselves to be the sovereign district of New York, and most of them have already gone on for 10-figure salaries and jobs. Like, for example, Kazami over at Guggenheim Partners. I mean, a place that he has no qualification to be at, but making an absolute fortune. So putting all of that aside, why should they believe me? Because everything that I have told, whether it's the Mueller team, the 8 different congressional committees, the New York Attorney General, the District Attorney, has all been proven, whether by documentary evidence or by corroborating testimony, has all been proven to be truthful, accurate, and relevant to their investigation. And that's the exact line that was used by the Mueller team when they were quoting me in their final report. Second most quoted person other than by Don McGahn. So that's probably the reason. And I am certain that as a witness, I will be impeachable. And by the way, just so people know, and again, it goes to show that that individual did not read Revenge and that just wants to remain ignorant and disinformed. Why? Because, I don't know, maybe it adheres to whatever position that he wants to take. And, a position of inaccuracy and the promotion of inaccuracy really makes somebody as ignorant as the person who started the whole thing. And that, of course, being Donald J. Trump. So rest assured, if and when I testify, whether it's before a grand jury, whether it's for the trial of the New York Attorney General or the District Attorney, when I am called up, I give you my word, and I assure you, as you all are here today, that everything that comes out of my mouth will be backed up by documentary evidence or by corroborating testimony, and it will be unimpeachable. That's for certain.
And Cohen, why do you think that Trump's lawyers subpoenaed you? By the way, is it a subpoena for deposition or documents or both? Let me ask you that question.
Yeah, so
first.
it's only a subpoena for what's called ad testificanda, meaning to come in and to testify, to lay aside all business matters prior and to come in and be deposed. First of all, their subpoena is, in my opinion, is invalid. I am not a party to this matter, and so if you're asking somebody to come in and to lay aside their life, their business, and so on, in order to provide testimony for a deposition, you do have to state with specificity the reason why that individual needs to come in. I'm not so sure that their subpoena is even valid, and we will find that out if, in fact, I make a motion to quash the subpoena, which I'm probably likely to do. If they want to ask me questions, they can do it on cross-examination if, in fact, I am even brought in to testify before for the case, for the trial brought by the New York Attorney General's office. We'll see then. But just to come in and to give testimony, I know exactly what these 5 law firms are going to do. They're going to do exactly what the Republicans tried to do to me each and every time that I testified before one of the congressional committees. They're going to try to just keep hammering you and saying stuff and trying to use it to impeach your credibility and so on. They failed before, they would fail again. But I'm not so sure that this time that I need to acknowledge and to acquiesce to the likes of Alina Hababa, right, and to Robert and Roberts, the law firms that are representing the various different Trump entities. I don't see whether or not that there's a benefit, and I happen to that day be busy, so I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to lay aside what I need to do on that specific day in order to handle their request for a subpoena, considering each and every one of them have just been so forthright with the American people in terms of honoring subpoenas. I'm just not sure what I want to do right now, and I'm taking it under advisement by counsel.
Well, if you do decide to show up, given that I am a lawyer, I'd love to be present in the room as a co-counsel. Just, I could help with some notes. I could help your co-counsel. So consider that. In terms of the date they set it for personal safety reasons, I don't think you need to give the specific date yet, but have they said it this month? Is it next month? Can you give us a degree of specificity close to when they've set it for?
Yeah, it's around mid-March. I think I already stated the day they want is March 10th. Where I can't tell you, but it is dated for March 10th, I believe. Hang on one second, and yeah, it is. It's March 10th.
And so in connection with the subpoena to testify, are there also documents they want you to bring, or is it just show up and testify?
Show up and testify. I mean, just simply that would be a ducis tecum subpoena, but this is just an ad testificandum.
Well, we will follow those developments there. I'm sure you will give the brigade the first look at what your decision making is ultimately going to be, if you're going to move to quash that. And as you said, you're willing to testify at the trial. As you said, if they want to ask me on cross-examination, but they haven't set forth in any specificity. I doubt they've even paid you witness fees. I'm sure there's a number of other defects with the subpoena that they gave you. But why make it easier on them when they're not going through the correct procedural process? And and if you're called in by the New York Attorney General's office, you're going to be happy to testify at that proceeding, regardless.
You know what, Ben? You just gave me an idea. Maybe what we do is I would have you come in as co-counsel in terms of representing me for this deposition, and then we'll have Salty come in with a camera. We'll videotape it. Maybe we'll even live stream it. I mean, wouldn't that be something for our political beatdown brigade? You get to watch Cohen in action like you did before. I mean, I think we're onto something here. You
And
know,
by the way, that can be arranged because the depositions are presumptively a public proceeding. There's no reason why they could deny access to the public. What I've actually have done before in depositions where I've had lawyers across the country on a case, the court reporting service and the videographer just basically, streams the same way we're streaming right now, the video deposition the same way you look right now to the public. We could
why
stream
not?
it live on the Midas Touch YouTube channel, and
Could
then
you
if it,
imagine?
not a bad
That
idea.
idea is right.
Let's
All
talk
right.
about the
We'll talk
Dominion.
about that offline because I think we're onto something here.
I think we're onto something. Could you imagine? I mean, okay, I won't give all the ideas away, but we'll talk about it offline. Let's talk about the Dominion court filing in their $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox. That is set to go to trial in April. It's a defamation lawsuit. Dominion filed a summary judgment motion, which in a plaintiff's case, in a defamation case where you're dealing with a public figure type of situation where you have the New York Times v. Sullivan actual malice standard, which was established in the seminal case in the 1960s. It is so rare for a plaintiff to be granted summary judgment when you sue a media company like this. But if anyone has a shot at it, it's Dominion. And basically, if summary judgment's granted, it just means the judge finds liability in favor of Dominion, so that the only thing the jury will have to decide is damages. Even if the summary judgment motion is denied, the case is going before the jury in April. I mean, Fox has about $5 billion of cash in its reserves based on its most recent public filings. With punitive damages, this case itself can be a $5 billion case and equal its cash reserves on hand. And there's the Smartmatic case that's set to go to trial in New York, and a dozen other or so cases from other individuals who Fox and its hosts have defamed. But this is some explosive stuff, in the filing. And so if we just pull up just some of the, filings here where you see how, yeah, exactly. You see how Fox, their hosts, their executives were talking about Trump and the conspiracy theories. And frankly, these were the words that they were using to describe Fox viewers who were talking about these election conspiracies. They knew at the time that the claims were false. And they used terms like ludicrous, totally off the rails, effing lunatics. And then there was this one example where Tucker and Laura Ingraham and Hannity would, and this is more than one instance, but this is one that I point to in the complaint on page 31, where this Jackie Heinrich, who was a fact checker at Fox at the time, and she fact checked one of these Trump tweets that spread the election disinformation about Dominion, and Heinrich said there is no evidence to support any of this. And then so what you had is then Tucker Carlson and Hannity and Ingraham all get into action, and they say, please get her fired. Seriously, what the fuck? I'm actually shocked. It needs to stop immediately. Like tonight, it's measurably hurting the company. The stock price is down. Not a joke. I mean, by the way, if I was writing this as a script for Hollywood, I would be like, you know what? That is just, it's so obvious. Like, no one would actually say it like that. Like, they got to say it like it's too obvious. Maybe make it say it a little more subtler and a little more coded.
It's almost like exactly like something out of House of Cards. I mean, you would not think that this would really be Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham making statements about, the fact that they don't give a shit about the truth. The truth doesn't really matter. That's like Jack Nicholson. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. But you know what we do care about? The stock price, because they clearly have stock rights, whether it's options or outright stock in the company. And they're worried more about their bottom line. These motherfuckers, so that what? He can buy a bigger and a better airplane. He can buy a bigger or second or third or fourth home. That they don't give a shit about the American people. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about telling the truth, transparency. None of that means shit to them. so long as that their stock prices increase and that now their net worth is higher, it's inflated, and they could sit there and go brag to each other at the club, right? Or in the green room as they're getting their makeup put on. They could brag to each other just how rich they've become as a direct result of Fox News' stock. I mean, that's a fucking disgrace. And the fact that Fox is still even on air, the fact that there's still so many people that watch it religiously, really gives me pause in terms of the mindset of the American people. This just goes not just like a foot too far. This is like a mile too far. And that's why, again, brigaders, it is so important. Could you imagine if we had the numbers that I expect us to have in short order? We could easily start picketing in front of Fox. This is not acceptable behavior by a news organization. Now, if they want to turn around and claim that they're Comedy Central, fine, so be it. If they want to turn around and claim that they are, some sort of entertainment television channel, then that's fine. But you cannot be Fox News and then turn around and report misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, whereby the hosts all know that it's a big fucking lie, and they continue to promote that big fucking lie solely for their stock benefit and for their own personal financial benefit. That's just unacceptable, and it should be to every single American, regardless of your party affiliation.
I think you hit on something really important there, because yes, the stakes here are existential to Fox, with the fact that Dominion is seeking $1.6 billion in compensatory damages. And if they're awarded punitive damages, that number can equal the cash reserves that Fox has reported last filing. But there's the point that you just hit on there as well, which is that Fox has been able to benefit by kind of this mutant media status, right? On the one hand, they go, oh, we're just entertainment and we're just opinion, we're not news. But then they try to then also use the kind of First Amendment protections that are given to news. And here, one of the very sophisticated things that the Dominion lawyers, I think, really laid out is also showing and piercing that veneer that this, we all know it, but to have the messages establish it concretely, that they should not be treated as news. And in fact, if they want to be treated as, and if they want to be treated as news, it's worse for them, because now they have to reach a threshold of actual objectivity, which they don't have.
Right. So just to be fair to Fox News, it was not Fox News who made the statement that they're not news, they're not a news organization, that they're not journalists, that they're entertainment. That was actually Sean Hannity who made that defense when it came to this Dominion case, as well as to others, whereby he claimed that he's not a journalist, he's a talk show host. That cannot be imputed into Fox. But your point is exactly correct, which is Fox should have immediately turned around and kicked his ass off the station by saying that I am not I'm not a news journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm just a talk show host. That to me should have immediately had him removed. But not only should it have had him removed, if I was a viewer of Fox, an avid viewer, and one of these Republicans, what I would absolutely do is I would cease watching it. And I think one of the problems that happened there is then when Donald started fighting with Rupert, because I think one of Rupert's kids, who is certainly more left-leaning than the other, and as well as to the way the news organization is established today, one of the things that Donald didn't like is that they were not reporting favorably of him. You may remember, because Fox, Rupert Murdoch also owns the New York Post. When they put Trumpty Dumpty on the wall, he didn't obviously like that. And so he started to attack Fox News and then told everybody to leave and go to Newsmax, which is another bullshit organization. That's by Chris Ruddy, nice enough guy, but it's he has a company which is all about misinformation, disinformation, and kissing Trump's fat ass. So if that's how you want to call your news organization, again, it's not news. It's misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. But absolutely, Ben, your point is extremely well taken. And Fox needs to be held accountable for all of this, for their hosts, whether it's under the theory of, let's say, respondeat superior or some other form. But 100%, Fox should be held accountable for all of the misinformation and disinformation that they've been spewing for literally since 2015.
You are watching the Political Beatdown live indictment watch with Michael Cohen and Ben Meiselas. For those just tuning in now, we started off the show with some big breaking news. Michael Cohen just returned from his 17th meeting with the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and Cohen reported here exclusively to the Political Beatdown Brigade that he believes he will be testifying before the criminal grand jury in Manhattan in the next 30 days. You heard that here first on the Political Beatdown Brigaders. We then talked about Michael Cohen being subpoenaed by Donald Trump's lawyers in connection with the New York Attorney General's civil fraud lawsuit. There's a lot of breaking news on this episode, and crossing the wire right now is a story exclusive to the New York Times, which they just broke, when a juror, one of the Fulton County special grand jurors, the 4 women on the Georgia special grand jury, was asked whether the jurors had recommended indicting Donald Trump. Miss Coors, the 4 women on the Georgia special grand jury, gave a cryptic answer. Quote, "You are not going to be shocked. It's not rocket science," adding, "You won't be too surprised," which to me gives all the indications of the same airplane analogies of landing in Justice Land and going to Indictment Hotel that we've given about the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal investigation into Donald Trump. But I want to make one other observations about that statement, how disciplined that 4-person was as well. Because I had previously said one of the reasons that Donald Trump went on his social media platform and claimed total exoneration was because he was trying to bait someone, exactly like that 4-person, get the media to ask those jurors, did you exonerate him? He's saying he's exonerated. And then a juror lets it slip and goes, no, he's not exonerated. We indicted him. And then Donald Trump plays the victim card and then says, oh, now my due process rights have been violated. Yeah, I know I want to terminate the Constitution where my due process rights emanate from. I know I want to destroy due process in general, but now I want to avail myself. Now I've been prejudiced. And so I want to give kudos to that 4-person, Miss Coors, as well, for how she answered that question, not taking the bait from New York Times, but more specifically what Trump was trying to specifically provoke. And of course, that gives an indication of what you said, Cohen, that it does look like Trump is going to be indicted and indicted soon out of the Fulton County proceedings.
You know, another issue, Ben, if we can just jump right into it, is everybody says, well, fuck Fox, who cares? Let them spew their bullshit. We know what we know, and let them, continue to be the misinformed, disinformed class of America. And I turn around and I say, that's to the exact opposite. So just to give you some statistics and some real facts, Sean Hannity's show on Fox News was at one point in time the highest rated cable news show of all of the cable news stations, with something like 3.25 million viewers per night. And then somehow or another, Carlson ends up taking that top ranked position with 4.5 million viewers per night. I mean, this is an astounding number. Now, you may not think 4.5 million is, some crazy number, but it actually is, because that's just 4.5 that are watching it. You can only imagine the number of people that are passing on this misinformation and disinformation. And we cannot, as brigaders, say this enough. It is why this type of program, why Midas Touch, with having people coming here and to get the truth. You see, you're not going to see this type of talk on any news station. I don't care if it's network, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. You're not going to see any of that. You're not going to see it on the cable news shows either. Why? Because, well, maybe we speak in colorful manners that aren't permitted on television. But on top of that, there's also a message that a lot of the stations do not want you to say. Don't talk negatively about another station. Well, really? I don't give a shit what they really want. I'll tell you what I care about. I care about you. I care about this country. I care about American democracy. I care about our Constitution. I care about my children, your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and future generations to come. Because rest assured, if we do not do something, and I mean starting not today, yesterday, if we don't start this and keep moving this thing forward to protect democracy, my biggest fear is that democracy will be lost. We will have more decisions like Roe. We will have more decisions that will impact each and every one of our daily lives and our children's and grandchildren and great-grandchildren's lives for generations to come. And you know what? We can't allow that to happen. And so together, as our brigade, is growing and we're making our voices heard, each and every one of us, all right, rest assured, we will put a stop to that bullshit, and we will ensure the future of democracy, and we will ensure that truth and transparency always prevail.
I want to talk about some of, again, the forces trying to stop the truth and transparency from prevailing. We just talked about this Dominion court filing, which just completely exposed Fox in text messages. We know Fox was exposed before, but in the text messages, in the emails, in the deposition under oath testimony, as just being a propaganda disinformation network. So what does Kevin McCarthy, the weakest speaker of the House in American history, do basically 2 days after the Dominion court filing is made public? He turns over 41,000 hours of surveillance footage from inside the Capitol building during the January 6th insurrection. He turns it over directly, not to the public, directly to Tucker Carlson exclusively, which, by the way, I think is illegal. I mean, you can't just, you're a public body as a member of Congress. So I'm looking into legal options there and what could be done there. But turns it over to Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson's producers. So here's the thing. We all want the most transparency possible. The issue when it comes to this footage, though, is that the United States Capitol Police basically said that future insurrectionists can use a lot of this other footage to reveal releasing the footage could reveal strategic locations in the Capitol, such as safe rooms and security cameras. It could also help give people like future insurrectionists a better sense of the building's layout, jeopardizing Capitol security. The Department of Justice said something similar. The Justice Department argued that releasing the footage could reveal sensitive information that could negatively affect ongoing criminal prosecutions against insurrectionists. And then I think we have Sean Gallagher, who's the Capitol Police, the head of the United States Capitol Police, and he echoed these sentiments and basically said, don't release this footage. And based on all of that, though, Kevin McCarthy said, no, we're releasing all of it because they want to spread the conspiracies. Like the conspiracy they want to spread is that the insurrectionists aren't really insurrectionists and that this was actually done by the FBI and Antifa, and this was a whole big hoax, and that the insurrectionists are actually heroes. And I mean, just to be clear, like, look at what Don Jr. posted. Marjorie Taylor Greene was the first to announce it. And then Don Jr. responded to Marjorie Taylor Greene's post where she goes, we're releasing the January 6 tapes, and not one single lying grifter on social media. I mean, these people just talk like maniacs. I don't want to read the rest of Marjorie Taylor Greene's post, but let's go back to Don Trump Jr. where he goes, 100% accurate. This has been in the works for weeks. If it's taken some time, it's because those that held it for the last few years were pretty reluctant to let it out. And we all know why. I mean, these are the biggest grift. These are just heinous and just despicable people. Like, there's no other way around it. And then it's like, okay, look, if you then want to release it public, if you want to go against what the Capitol Police is saying, what the Department of Justice is saying, common sense is saying, which is why the January 6th committee made very careful efforts in terms of what they released in public spaces. Like you saw what took place outside. You saw what took place in the rotunda. They didn't release the stuff in safe rooms and stuff because the Capitol Police said, don't do it. If the Capitol Police said, do it, they would do it. But in any event, if you're Kevin McCarthy, then release the thing to the public, then release it to everybody. So now it gets released to a self-identified propagandist who's trying to cherry pick things and manipulate footage to spread complete lies. I mean, that is the height of collusion with a media company. That's exactly the opposite of what should be taking place. You know, and like large media networks are so so feckless, are so weak that they like just let themselves get trounced by this. One other thing I want to mention, Cohen, as well, just as more news comes from the story about the foreperson, that the foreperson who I just mentioned in Georgia said that they are recommending multiple indictments as well. Will not discuss the specifics, but said they're recommending multiple indictments. Of course, we want to give all the breaking news to everybody who watch this and listen to this live. So, Cohen, what's your reaction, though, to McCarthy handing these tapes over to Tucker Carlson with all we know about Tucker the traitor?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I keep trying to explain to people, despite the fact that Donald is actually very dumb, one of the things he's very devious. And make no bones about it, those tapes were not given to Fucker Carlson simply because at the end of the day, you know, it was just randomly decided it would go to him, not to Sean or Ingraham or to a Nicole Wallace or George Stephanopoulos or an Ari Melber or whoever it might be. It was given to him for a very specific reason. And one of the concerns that we all must have is, what is he and his producers going to do with those specific tapes? How much of it are they going to cut out, and how are they going to blend it together in order to make a point that would basically provide Donald and his band of fuck nuts to put this all together for the sole purpose of a benefit for him? Rest assured, that's what this is all about. The only reason that they gave this to Tucker is because Donald sees, and I don't know what it is yet, but as soon as it comes out, then I'll be able to figure it out. But Donald sees that there's some benefit down the road because he has a devious mind that he'll be able to take advantage of. And, you know, going back, if we tie this together with whether it's Fulton County, the foreperson, whether it's my statement that I believe that an indictment is forthcoming within the next 30 days, as well as other cases that are now out there and pending against Trump and company, I believe he feels almost like that he's trapped, and he's trying to figure out who he could throw under the bus and what information could he provide as a witness to government in order to throw that individual under the bus for his own selfish purpose, for his own benefit, and to avoid prosecution and responsibility. That's what this is all about. It's not just that they decided to release these January 6th tapes. Somehow or another, whether it was Don Jr. who did it, whether it was Donald himself who reached out to McCarthy, whether they were reached out through Rudy Colludi, Drunken Giuliani, or somebody else, I promise you that there is a reason why it was released now. There's a reason why it was released to Fucker Carlson, and there's definitely going to be some series of documents that will ultimately, or I should say video footage, that will ultimately look like there was some sort of benefit that Donald will be able to take advantage of. There's no doubt in my mind for this, because that's how the man works. That's how his brain works. It's always forward thinking, who he could use for his own benefit.
You know, one of the things that we do a lot in Midas Touch is a lot of our analysis and our historical perspectives are based in a lot of the relevant historic research and also speaking behind the scenes with psychiatrists, psychologists, cult deprogramming experts on malignant narcissism, experts on authoritarianism, professors of history. We're always speaking to them behind the scenes to try to fundamentally understand the links between lots of events, and also in our presentation to make sure that it's clear that we're using language so that history doesn't repeat itself. Because I think large media networks are utilizing the same type of weak rhetoric and allowing themselves to get trampled on by the same forms of fascist propaganda that we see historically emerge, even though, obviously, whether it's social media versus the radio versus newspapers versus, how information was transmitted even thousands of years back, human history sometimes provides a roadmap. And things we know about Donald Trump is his love of dictators. And we also know that Donald Trump also doesn't really read in depth into it, but at the highlights, the kind of lore of authoritarians of the past is something that he sees himself as part of that group of strong men in history who have taken over countries. And so why I think he wants this footage is identified in, the Reichstag fire in Germany, and how Hitler came to power. I think it is located in the March of Rome, how Mussolini came to power. Their whole framing of January 6th and the insurrection was modeled after, based on my view and research of it. And when you actually see these pieces and you look at it through that lens, he based it on the March on Rome. He based it on the Reichstag fire. He based it on what Hitler and Mussolini did. And you see that if you go through the January 6th committee report, like there's even a reference. You know how Trump sometimes talks about, well, there was these 10,000, I talked about 10,000 troops or 20,000 troops, and I ordered them. We know he didn't, because Christopher Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense, spoke before the January 6th committee under oath and said that never happened. That is false. Miller tried to go on Hannity and lie, but when he went under oath, he admitted that that never happened. But there is a reference in the report to 10,000 to 20,000 troops. And it was that when Trump wanted to proclaim himself emperor and have this procession lead him to the Capitol building, he was telling people privately, like Max Miller and others who testified to this effect. Katrina Pearson testified to this, that he wanted the 10,000 troops or the 10,000 to walk with him, as in his mind, he would be declared emperor by Pence, or he would try to kill Pence, or he would go there and his buddies in Congress, the MAGA fascists there, would then proclaim him emperor. That's how he saw it in his mind. We are fortunate that he's an idiot, right? We are fortunate that this version of MAGA fascism also mixes a stupidity and an idiocracy and just dumb. Like I could try to say bigger words, but
if you can just jump in also, it's so reminiscent in things that Trump has said when he was, in essence, praising Hitler when he ended up driving through down the Champs-Élysées in France. It's the same when Kim Jong-un decided to have the military parade. What did Donald want to do? He wanted to have a military parade in Washington to not just mirror what Kim Jong-un had, but greater and more, thought-evoking and more, more just boisterous than what anybody has ever seen before, to show American might. Well, no other president in U.S. history has ever done this. And you're right, Ben, 100%. Who does things like this? Dictators, autocrats, monarchs, supreme leaders, not presidents of the United States. We're a democracy. He just doesn't understand the distinction of a democracy versus an autocracy. It's the same when he sees, Vladimir Putin. He wants to be this type of a leader, worse than anything. I mean, it's just all day long. That's what he thinks of. How do I become these individuals?
You know, and that's why the image, when you compare, like the image of Biden standing next to Zelensky, right? And here's an image of Trump at like a Holiday Inn giving,
Look at that
on
fucking
the same
ugly
day,
garbage.
you got Biden who's walking into a war zone. It's the first time an American president has been in Ukraine since 2008. The first time ever a sitting president went into an active war zone without a United States military presence there. You have the air sirens going off as Biden is walking in, and Biden could have went on the outskirts of Ukraine and been safer, but he goes, no, I want to go to Kyiv. I want to go to Kyiv. Here, let's just play this clip for our viewers here of him walking in with the air signs blaring. Here, play this clip. I mean, how courageous, how that's what real strength looks like. And, compare those images even with Trump and Kim Jong-un. I mean, just think about him elevating actually weak dictators abroad because they are treated like gods in their area. Like the weird dictators, Trump anoints them and attacked our allies and attacked democracy abroad. And even today, you got Biden in Warsaw. I think we have a clip of Biden just speaking in Warsaw today that I want to play in a moment. But Biden stayed to basically call out Putin. And this is, I mean, this symbolism here. I mean, to me, it's just one of those moments for the rest of, American history. It just sends such a powerful message. This is who America is. Here, just play this clip of Biden in Warsaw.
1 year ago, the world was bracing for the fall of Kyiv. Well, I just come from a visit to Kyiv, and I can report Kyiv stands strong. Kyiv stands proud. It stands tall. And most important, it stands free. When Russia invaded, it wasn't just Ukraine being tested. The whole world faced a test for the ages.
Right.
Strong.
I mean, how many times have we said on this show, on your, Midas Touch programs, on Mea Culpa, how many times have I said, if you have a strong America, you have a strong world. If you have a weak America, you have a weak world. Coming off of the Trump administration, this country has never been weaker. And every single day, Joe Biden has to do things that project American strength so that the rest of the world, whether it be China, North Korea, that they understand that these flyover, ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles, is unacceptable, and we will not stand for it. When you have the president of the United States unannounced goes right into the middle of a war zone, not like Trump did when he went to Vietnam to hang out and have lunch with Kim Jong-un. And I heard that the lunch for the two of them that was prepared was probably enough for 50. That's not the same as going into a war zone or going in, for example, like to Afghanistan, but going into some demilitarized zone that's so far away that, you're out of any potential harm. Joe Biden went right into the middle of it because he is projecting American strength. And I promise you, folks, I promise you that what this is going to do is going to inure to the benefit of this country for many, many years to come. Speaking about inuring to the benefit of this country, one of the things that, as we continue to grow, one of the things I really do want to do sometime maybe in May or June is, wouldn't it be great if we had a March of the Brigade to Washington, D.C., where we ensure that our voices are heard by all members of Congress, Republican, Democrat alike, by the Biden administration, that we do what would be comparable to like the Million Man March. We would have a March of the Brigade. And we would make sure that they understand that our voices will not be ignored, and that the positions that we take here on the political beatdown are only positions that inure to the benefit of all Americans, not just Republican, elitists and Donald Trump friends and acolytes. That this is for the American people, and that we stand united together in order to push out anybody that wants to act contrary to the positions that we have.
Couldn't agree with you more there. Want to show you Donald Trump's statement, though. So compare what we just saw with Biden, and this is what Trump said about Putin at that Holiday Inn, whatever that set was that he was at. Play the clip.
Another example, Putin. Putin never, ever would have gone into Ukraine if I were president. Never. And I told him, I actually had a very good relationship. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. These idiots back there would say, he's very close to Putin. Remember when they hit me with the question, who do you trust? Your intelligence people in the United States. They're not intelligent. Your intelligence people. Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Lisa Page. How about Lisa? Or Putin. And I said, that could be the toughest question I've ever been asked as a politician. They wanted me. And then when I really didn't give them a very good answer in terms of exactness, because I didn't want to, because I didn't trust these people. They're bad people. These are bad people. And when I didn't give, all hell broke loose. But that's okay. That's okay. And it turned out I was right. I was right about that, too. These people, what they have done to our country with the fake Russia scam. And, it's just incredible. But Putin never, ever would have gone into Ukraine.
Wow. Just think about that, to have a former president, which just even pains me to say that, that too. Putin, that he trusts Putin and Russia more than the United States intelligence. Like you to have just the enemy within like that is such a shocking thing. But the good thing, Cohen, is that, as I mentioned, you have this idiocracy element. Obviously, just every aspect of that Trump speech was just kind of utterly absurd. But if you want to just have an example of Trumpism just destroying the Republican Party, just look at what happened over the weekend in Michigan to the Michigan GOP. So the Michigan GOP has installed Christina Caramo, who is an election denier, as its leader. And Trump praised her as a patriotic and incredible election denier. He used those terms. Congratulations to Christina Caramo, a powerful and fearless election denier, in winning the chair of the GOP in Michigan. Just think about that he's congratulating her and using the terms a powerful election denier. Now, she ran for Secretary of State in Michigan and just got trounced to Jocelyn Benson, got utterly destroyed in that Michigan race. But she's so far down this QAnon rabbit hole. Like literally the most bizarre, shocking, like almost makes Marjorie Taylor Greene's statements look like semi-normal in comparison. Which, how do you do that? This is the individual who the Michigan Republican Party has elected to be the chair of the Republicans in Michigan, the 10th largest state in the United States. And like the party's bankrupt, not just morally and ethically and politically, which it is, but like they can't even afford to pay their staff at this point. Let me just show you this clip as we close out this episode. This is Caramo talking about like possums. This is the new leader of the Michigan Republican Party. Play this clip.
So I was taking my walk this morning and look what I ran across. A vulture eating a possum. As soon as I saw that, you know what I thought about? Us, the American people, as the possum, and the vulture is the globalist political left. And the sad part about it is most people don't realize it because they distract you with a bunch of little stupid stuff like, look at that misogyny, look at that homophobia, look at that racism, the poor people, we're going to help you all. So people are like, oh, they're for the little guys and I'm little, so they're going to help me. It's a distraction. It is a ruse. They are trying to set up a globalist system with one economic, one religious, and one political system for us all to adhere to, and America is in the way. That is why they hate Donald Trump so much. He's getting in the way of their agenda. And they use these foolish little celebrities to sell it to you guys that, don't you care about people to stop guns? What is the Second Amendment for? You really trust governments that much to not kill us? Quit being naive. Stalin, Mao, Hitler, okay, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara. Governments have done atrocious things to their people. Are you that naive to think it can never happen here?
This is the
You
leader.
know, the problem is that, as they like to say, a little information in the hands of an idiot, all right, is very dangerous. And it's stupid people like her, Ben, that are messing up the entire thing. You know, The Hill put out a story where 62% of, I believe it's the Republican Party, believe that Donald Trump is accurate when he says that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine. I mean, honestly, do we not remember the fact that Donald was trying to withhold $200+ million of aid from Ukraine? That was during his administration. But when you have people like this Karamo, I mean, this is just ignorance at its best. This is stupidity and improper logic at its best. I mean, yes, she is an absolute ass clown. There is no other way to describe her. And thank God that she lost. Could you imagine if we had another Marjorie Taylor Greene, another Lauren Boebert, another George Santos, you know, as a member of Congress? At some point in time, as they like to also say, right, the lunatics have taken over the asylum. And that's what we have to be afraid of. And that's what we have to, again, cumulatively stay strong and stay united, be the brigade, and make sure that this stuff does not happen. I don't care if it's Michigan, Texas, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Arkansas, Alabama. It makes no difference what state. It makes no difference at all. We have to be a force big enough that we can ensure that, she goes where she belongs, which is to the cuckoo farm.
And look, that's who the Republicans put to become the Secretary of State of Michigan, to basically oversee the elections. Thankfully, as you said, she lost there, but she just won and became the head of the Republican Party in Michigan. Let me ask this one favor of the brigade right now. By the way, the Political Beatdown right now is the top news show right now internationally, right now on YouTube, of all the news in the world. Political Beatdown right now is the #1 show on YouTube in terms of a live stream right now, thanks to you, the brigade. To all the brigaders, do us this favor as well. After this is done, subscribe to the audio of Political Beatdown. So just search wherever you get your audio podcast as well. You're going to definitely want to listen to this one again, but search Political Beatdown. Make sure you subscribe, leave a 5-star review there. It helps with the algorithm there. We encourage people to listen to the audio and then watch live as well. And then these videos are stored. So one of the things that you can do if you just listen to this purely on audio, there is a library right here of all of these live streams as well. And you can just search on the Midas Touch YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the Midas Touch YouTube channel, hit subscribe right now, right here. Subscribe right now. We're marching to 1 million subscribers. Check out Michael Cohen's new book, Revenge. It is an incredible read, how Donald Trump weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice against his critics. True weaponization right there. And the title was apropos and frankly ahead of its time, because everything is projection when it comes to these MAGA Republicans. And just listen to what Congressmember Jamie Raskin had to say recently about Michael Cohen regarding what true weaponization of the Department of Justice looks like, and read Revenge wherever books are sold and wherever audio is sold as well. Check out store.midastouch.com for the best pro-democracy Midas Touch gear. Get the Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility Official Mea Culpa podcast shirt, which brings that store.midastouch.com. Also, check out Cohen's other podcast, Mea Culpa, a great show produced by Audio Up and Midas Touch. Cohen absolutely crushes it in Mea Culpa, nothing but the truth. Again, make sure you're subscribed to Mea Culpa as well. Again, hit subscribe here. And you could also check out Midas Touch at patreon.com/Midas Touch. There are memberships there. That's how we fund the network exclusively. So you can go to patreon.com/Midas Touch to check that out. Cohen, I have too much fun doing this show with you, and we appreciate you breaking the news and the exclusives right here and all the big news you provided on this edition of Political Beatdown. Remember, everyone, subscribe to the audio right now. Search audio podcast, Political Beatdown. Audio listeners, subscribe to the Midas Touch YouTube channel. We will see you on Thursday. Cohen and I will see you then. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. What's up,
And Michael
Brigade?
Cohen
And
saying
shout out
goodbye.
to the Midas Mighty.
Till next time.